the economic condition, all the major natural disasters happens in these places. If they have done any fraud, if they have misleaded the government, then the option of arrest and seizure will be there. Payment of tax to the government, yes, he has to pay tax to the government, and he has an input tax credit, yes, then he has to register. A warm welcome to one and all. This is your Adarsh sir, lecturing Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence. We are discussing your Unit 2, Session 2. In the Session 1, we discussed about all the basic theory concept, the definitions, the features of GST, dual models of GST. All these concepts we learned in the previous session. In today's session, we talk about the Article 279A GST Council. Now, you can expect question on GST Council for 10 marks. In this, GST Act Section and Schedule, Sections and Provisions, CGST Act 2017. Along with that, intra-state supply versus interstate supply. As I told you, inter and intra. Within the Karnataka, within the state, if you do any sales, that will be called as intra-state. And one state to another state, if you do any sales, that will be called as interstate. Explanation of person, taxable person, registered person, unregistered person. There is a definition of person under GST. Under income tax, we have definition for person and assessee. Person can be artificial person and person can be a living person. Even all the companies called as artificial person. Now, meaning of related person, distinct person, casual taxable person, non-resident taxable person, regular scheme and composition scheme. You will get problems on composition scheme, and this is all your 2 marks theory. You have to explain who is called as person and who are called as casual taxable person. These are the types of person you are supposed to explain. First, we'll go with Article 279A. These are not much important. As I told you in the previous session, in this unit, you will have all the definition related to person is important. And regarding the council body of GST, that is also important, GST Council. Now, in this, the GST Council shall consist of the following members. Who are the members? The Union Finance Minister, the Union Minister of State, Minister in charge, Minister nominated by each state. Along with that, the role of GST Council. What GST Council will do? If you want to frame a company or if you want to do a small circle, get together, we'll make a council. If you have a club or if you are living in apartment, there also will get members, council. Because everybody cannot involve in all the activities. Some heads will be there. They can take decisions, they can take approvals, and they can make plans. So according to that, according to them, the whole institution will work. Now, in this, the role of GST Council, the taxes, cess, surcharge levied by union, the state and the local bodies which may be subsumed in the goods and service tax. And the next point, the goods and service that may be exempted from the GST subject to the law provisions. So next one, model GST law, principles of levy, apportionment of goods and service tax levied on supplies in courses of interstate trade. Interstate, as I told you earlier, interstate means one state to another state. For example, you are selling or giving goods from Karnataka to Kerala or Tamil Nadu. These are called as interstate, one state to another state. Then, special provision with respect to states of Arunachalam Pradesh, Assam, Manipuram, Sikkim, Nagaland, Meghalaya, Jammu and Kashmir, Tripura, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, such states are referred as a special category state. These places are called as special states, or such states are referred as special category states because the economic conditions. The economic condition, all the major natural disasters happens in these places. Clear? So, natural calamities, it may affect. There is a reason these places are called as always special category states. Some subsidies, some exemptions will be applicable for these kind of states. Next, effective date of levy of GST on petroleum products. As I told you in the previous session, petrol, even though 1 or 2 rupees we are paying per liter, but actual cost will be how much? 57. The remaining amount will be called as VAT as well as your excise duty. Now, the GST will recommend the date on which the goods and service tax be levied on petroleum product. Next, guiding principle for GST Council. While discharging the functions confirmed by the article, the GST Council shall be guided by the need for harmonized structure. As I told you, these are only for reference. Don't study, don't mug up all this. And quorum. Already you have learned in the topic called law, meeting. Under meeting, you have already learned what is quorum. Quorum means what? 1/2 of the total number of members of the GST Council shall constitute the quorum at its meeting. Next one, procedure. The GST Council determines the procedure of its function. Who will determine GST Council? This is very important. Then, decision by GST Council. What decisions can be taken by Council? Every decision will be taken at GST Council meeting by the majority of not less than 3/4 of the total weighted votes. Out of 5 are, so 3/4 out of 4, 3 should say okay for that. They should agree. Then only they can take the final decision. The vote of the central government shall have a weightage of the 1/3 of the total votes cast. So even central government also have rights to vote. The vote of the state government shall have a weightage of 2/3. See, 2/3 by state government and 3/4 by your central government. Next one, statement of dispute. Dispute means you know that all the fights, we call it as disputes, the problems. Now, the GST Council shall establish a mechanism to adjudicate any dispute like between the government of India and one or more state, between government of India and state, then between 2 or more state arising out of the recommendation of the council or implementation thereof. These are the provisions regarding statement of dispute. So these are the GST Act sections and schedule. No need to remember any sections because in the examination, they will not ask you any sections. Now, the CGST Act 174, number of section. How many sections are there? Number of schedule? 3 schedule. Similarly, you have IGST, then SGST, the CST compensation to state. These are the sections as well as schedules. And these are again sections, no need to remember, just for the glance. Section 3, Section 24. One is classes of officers, CBIC, delegation of power to state GST, scope of supply, tax liability of mixed supply, charging section, composition, time and value of supply, input tax credit. Important. What is the section? Section 16 to Section 24. What is the section for input tax credit? Section 16 to Section 21. Similarly, from 22 to 64 we have, one is for registration, tax invoice, accounts, return, payment, tax reduction, we call it as TDS, collection of tax at source, refund, assessment. Assessment is important, then registration is important, returns important. These are the major topics you are supposed to remember. Sections no need to remember. The individual calculation of this topic will be there in your further syllabus. Again, from 65 to 174, audit, inspection, search, seizure and arrest. When the seizure and arrest will come is when the GST is not paid properly, if they have done any fraud, if they have misleaded the government, then the option of arrest and seizure will be there. Demand and recovery, liability to pay in certain cases, advance ruling, appeal and revision, presumption as to document, miscellaneous provision including the provisions relating to the imposition of interest and penalty. Only you remember, if possible, remember out of, there are almost, it starts from section 3 up to 174. There are 26 serial number under 26 are there. Out of that, try to remember any 4, so that for the 2 marks they can ask you the sections with explanation. So section 22 subsection 44, section 22 subsection 45. This is about e-commerce, electronic commerce operator. Nowadays everything is happening online, so this is also most important, e-commerce and electronic commerce operator. Threshold limit for registration, important. For 2 marks, remember this. Taxpayers shall be exempted from obtaining registration if supplies of service having turnover up to 20 lakhs, making supplies through e-commerce platform. See, you know about Flipkart, Amazon, any online transactions are happening, any online portals are there. What is the limit? Up to 20 lakh transaction, there is no need of registration of GST. For example, every year your turnover comes around 10 lakh, 12 lakh, 15 lakh, 18 lakh, up to 20 lakh, no need to go for GST. Without GST, you can go with your service. If your turnover or sales exceeds 20 lakh, mandatory, compulsory, you have to go under GST registration. Then the section 7 of IGST, all these things are just to remember, no need to learn. So registration, then composition scheme and composition scheme in this intrastate and interstate. As I told you, I'll explain you about composition scheme. Again, you have problems on composition scheme. Remember, composition scheme means instead of paying different kinds of tax, you can go for one tax. That one tax, assume that you have 4%, you have 8%, 12%, then 0%, then you have 27%, 18%. Instead of paying different types of tax, you can go with one tax. That is called composition scheme. But you cannot go 4% directly. There are so many rules and regulations are there, documentations are there. You have to fulfill those, then only you are eligible for composition scheme. And you may feel that instead of paying 12, 18%, we can go for 4% because there is a least value. The logic is, these percentages are calculated on profit, small amount, but this is calculated on selling price, turnover. Your selling price is always more than your profit. Assume that you bought for 100, you are selling for 110. The remaining 10 will be profit. Your all percentage should be calculated on 10 rupee. But if you go for composition scheme, this 4% is calculated on selling price, 110. Assume that 18% on 10 rupee, you will get 1.8. Then 4% on 110, you will get 4.4, whichever is higher. Yes, again I'll repeat. On profit, if you calculate 18%, go with highest percentage, 27%. 10 rupee into 27%, 2.7. 110 into 4%, you will get 4.4. Whichever is higher, 4.4 is higher. You may feel that there is a least percentage, but this has to be calculated on selling price. You may find these are the highest percentage. This has to be calculated on profit. That is called composition scheme. I'll go in detail about composition scheme while doing particular topic. So this is very important for your examination. Now, person, explanation of person under section 2, subsection 2(8). Now, person includes individual, HUF, company, firm, LLP, association of person. Now, again, whatever you have learned in income tax, the same concept will be applicable. Now, you have to go with any individual, HUF, company, firm, LLP, limited liability partnership, and association of person, any corporation established by or under Central Act or government company as defined in section 22, subsection 45 of the Companies Act. Anybody corporate incorporated by the under the law of country outside India. Cooperative society registered under any law related to cooperative society. All these people come under the definition of person. Next, all the local authority, central government or state government, society as defined under the Societies Registration Act, every artificial judicial person not falling within any of the above mentioned points comes under person. Yeah. Now, in this, other than this, registration given in case of if he is liable. So when the registration is allotted, when the registration is given, only in the following case. If he is liable, first point. Second one, if applies voluntarily to register. For example, your sales turnover is less than 20 lakhs, but you feel that in this particular year, your sales will double, your sales will cross 20 lakh, and you want, voluntarily you will agree that yes, I want a registration for GST, you can go and apply for that. Payment of tax to the government, no benefit. Input tax credit, no benefit. Now, so for example, if you want to claim input tax credit without any benefit, then also you can go for a registration. Explanation of taxable person in this. Person who is registered are liable to be registered under section 22 or section 24. Registration. He is a person who is liable, then he has to apply for registration. If already registered, then no question. Payment of tax to the government, yes. Input tax credit, yes, if he is a registered. See, what is the procedure? He has to register. If he is liable, already registered, there is no question of registration. And payment of tax to the government, yes, he has to pay tax to the government. And he has an input tax credit, yes, then he has to register. Hope you are clear. What is input tax credit? You may have doubt. So what is input tax credit? We are talking since the syllabus. Yeah, while talking about syllabus also, I told you what is input tax credit, but I did not explain you. Remember, input tax credit. Assume that you bought a mobile. You bought a mobile for 10,000 rupees. Now, what is the tax? Assume that the tax rate is 18%. So it will be 1,800. And you sold that mobile for 8,000 into 18%. So it will be how much? 1,440 tax. 8,000 into 18%, you will get how much? 1,440. Now, assume that 10,000 into 18%, 1,800, but you sold at lesser price. Now, there is a loss of 360 in the tax. Means your selling price is lesser than buying price. Again, I will repeat, your selling price is lesser than buying price. Means you paid more tax while purchasing and you paid less tax while selling. 360 excess paid? Yes, because tax always finalized at the time of sale. At the time of sale, the tax is only this much. At the time of buying, the tax is more. 360 extra tax you paid. this tax you can utilize next time. Next time you are supposed to pay tax now, that time this amount can be used. This we call it as input tax credit, ITC. Excess amount paid in the tax, always we call it as input tax credit. So explanation of registration of person. A person who register under section 25 but does not include a person having a unique identity number. Registration, already registered. Payment to the tax to the government, yes. Input tax credit, yes. So once you register, you will get a unique number like GST registration number. A person who is not registered, registration not applicable, payment of tax to the government, no. And input tax credit, no. If you are not registered to the government, there is no GST registration, then you are not supposed to claim ITC. You are not supposed to pay tax to the government. You are not supposed to register if you are not registered. Then only you have to get it registered. Now, meaning of related person, very important. Related person means what? Yes, because as I told you, in the market the goods is available for 100. Because of your brother, because of your sister, you are selling for 20. Tax is calculated always on what? Your selling price. Your selling price is 20. 20 into tax, it will be how much? 3.6. But actual tax is how much? 36. See how much you have avoided. There is a loss to the government. Again, we'll come back to this. Person shall be deemed to be related person if such person are officers, directors, are one another. The same office you are the manager, selling the goods to yourself. The same office you are the head, selling the things to yourself. You are called as a related party. Such person are legally recognized partner in business. If that person is a partner, such person are employer or employee. Any person directly, indirectly owns, control, hold 25% of more. These are called as related person or related people. Now, again I'll repeat. If you are trading with the person who is your officer, who is your manager, obviously the selling price will be lesser than market price. If you are selling goods to the employee itself, employer itself, 100% the selling price must be half of the market price. And selling to the person who is your partner of the business, definitely the price will be less. See, when you show the selling price less, your tax also less, government will suffer loss. That's why always you have to go with MRP, market price. Now, distinct person, person who has obtained or required to obtain more than one registration, whether in one state or union territory, shall in respect of each such registration be treated as distinct. Distinct person means you are from Karnataka, you have a business in some other state also. If you need separate registration, then you have to call, you are called as distinct person. You have a business in union territory, there if you want to get separate registration, then you will be called as distinct person. So meaning of casual person. In the income tax, you know that what are the casual income, like all your gambling, horse race, lottery income, all called as casual income. But in this, person who occasionally undertakes transaction involving supply of goods or service are both to the coast for the further business, whether as principal agent or any other capacity in the state or in union territory where he has no fixed place of business. CTP has to file GSTR1, GSTR2, GSTR3, and also he can. So CTP means casual taxpayer, a person. Claim ITC of all the inward supplies subject to the condition applies to the registered dealer. These things I'll explain you while doing the particular problem, because these things you can understand only with the numbers. If numbers are there, then you can understand better. Meaning of regular scheme. A regular scheme, it is very simple. Whatever the tax rate is mentioned on that particular item, that has to be paid, that has to be charged, and that has to be filed. Now, CGST, any person register under GST law but excluding person opt to pay under composition. I told you composition you will get a special rate, but a composition tax always calculated on the turnover. And threshold limit is rupees 40 lakhs or 20 lakhs, and he is eligible for both interstate and interstate. He can sell within the state also, he can sell out of the state also. Meaning of composition scheme. Composition scheme already I explained you. The threshold limit you have to remember 1.5 crores or 75 lakhs, and he is eligible for interstate supply only. The tax limit 75 lakhs to 1.5 crore depends on some conditions. I'll explain you while doing that particular topic. So in the next session, we go with all the definition which are very important for your 2-mark question. So this is all about your today's session. Hope you understood the meaning of person, the GST Council, the procedure for registration, and who can register, what is the limit, what is the threshold limit, and who are related person, and which are composition scheme, and what is normal scheme. These are the major one, all about theory. Theory, as I told you, GST in theory is a part of your syllabus. Thank you.